Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Mythgard in Middle-earth. My name is Corey Olson, the Tolkien Professor, joined as always by my friend Gryfflet, who is hard to find in Fangorn, I gotta tell you. I think... Oh, there he is. Oh, okay, right. All right, there he is. He was, I guess he was thinking that Rohirric gentleman looked so comfortable lying under the ferns, almost completely obscured as he was last time, that he thought that sounded like a good idea. Hey, so apologies for the slight delay there. I was having audio issues, but I think I've resolved them, so you should now be able to hear me more or less 100% of the time, which is the big improvement. So, let us return here to Fangorn. So Gryfflet has been helping Ents and arousing Ents and all of these other things. I still haven't, I think, been to this... I don't know if this is meant to indicate a particular site, like there is a particularly large, dangerous, and bat-infested tree at this particular point, or not. I don't know what that's meant to indicate, but we've not really done that yet. We've been skirting around the edges of the eaves of Fangorn here, and now we have come up to the place which is marked by spiders, and of course everybody knows the flashbacks that I'm having with this distressed Huorn and spiders, so we'll see if Gryfflet can undo his failings of the past here. Okay. Let's talk to the Huorn. Huorn is very distressed in its great tangle of webs. Oh, the flashbacks. Before anything can be done, it should be set free, for it is cruel to watch a creature suffer so. You only hope that the Huorn is not a hostile one. Well, I agree, but, you know, hang on. So let's see if we can do the thing. Sorry, there we go. All right. Let's free the Huorn of its wrappings. Okay. How do I free the Huorn of its wrappings? Where do I... Oh, up there. I've got to aim higher. Okay. There we go. Clearing webs. You got this, Huorn. We'll have you right as rain in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Whatever you do, don't run straight into a bunch of spiders. Not that it was the walking tree's fault or anything. Okay, there you go, Huorn. I showed great kindness to this distressed creature. The Huorn shows no signs of hostility, and thanks. Hey, glad we could come to a mutual non-aggression pact. Indeed, it still looks restless, despite being free of its bonds. You fear it feels the same sense of dread that you feel while standing at the foot of this foreboding stair. Excellent. All right. Ooh, well, we can have further conversations. The distressed Huorn paces unhappily at the base of some stairs in a quadrant of the forest that fills you with some fear. You should investigate what lies atop the stairs, for you suspect a significant spider problem in this area. It appears that these foes are spilling out of their nest. Okay. And if this Huorn became entangled so near to the sticky webs of the silken hold, not a terrible name, it is likely that other creatures of its species may be trapped within. Other such Huorns might be the source of distress in this fellow. See, that's an interesting question to me. What is interesting to me about this is the theoretical question: do trees experience a sense of community? That is, I can imagine, you know, like, yeah, confirmed spiders, huh? I can imagine that one can, you know, thinking about Ents and Huorns and their relationship with the forest and stuff on the one hand, one can imagine an almost sort of communal existence, like an almost sort of hive mind kind of thing with the trees of the forest, right? On the one hand, that seems to make some sense. But at the same time, trees and Ents, as they're depicted by Tolkien, seem to be such rather independent creatures that I can also imagine completely the opposite, right? That, like, you know, two trees growing next to each other in the same forest could be, like, completely oblivious to one another, really, and just sort of focused on their own growth and their own thinking about the way in which, you know, trees, like, compete with each other for light and stuff. Doesn't necessarily say, you know, trees within a forest certainly don't, you know, act towards each other, or like, you know, they don't seem to live in an existence anything like, you know, bees or ants or something like that. So maybe not. Maybe instead, if one could actually talk to the trees, one would find that they're all kind of loners. And what would be the tree equivalent of misanthropists? Like misarburists or something? I don't know. Yeah, so Ethelod, right, the kind of hive mentality thing, okay, in the Old Forest, but see, actually there, Ethelod, I'm not sure that the evidence that we're given of the Old Forest doesn't suggest the contrary. It's possible, of course, to read the Old Forest like that, right? Like, one tree gets harmed, or even talk about harming trees, and the rest of the trees rally to its defense, but I'm not sure that that's what's actually happening, right? Tom Bombadil suggests that when you that the old man Willow himself, that his thought, you know, he's a mighty singer, right? And his thought, like, extends throughout the valley, so that what we see, the kind of group action on the part of trees, you know, the ways in which the trees are all connected together in the Old Forest, seems to me potentially an example not of the natural sort of collaborative spirit of the trees of the Old Forest, but rather of the domination of their wills by Old Man Willow. Yeah. Now that's interesting, Phil, to kind of think of a sort of a compromise solution, right? Like all forests might have this kind of connection among themselves, but that connection is warped and twisted and sort of manipulated by Old Man Willow. I kind of like that reading, but yeah. Anyway, okay. All right. Acorns litter the floor of the silken hold, threatening to grow into a doomed existence under the webs of the spiders who dwell there. Okay. I accept to enter the silken hold and rescue the acorns. The silken hold is guarded by 3 very old and evil spider mistresses. Okay, I've got great spiders to defeat. Ooh, they have names. Great. Guarded by the presence of great evil. Okay. Alright, so I'm meant to defeat spiderlings. Okay, right, that's the spider spawn quest. Oh, I got another thing down there. Okay, Spiders of Fangorn 1. Oh, that's not a good sign. Okay. And I've got to free horns, and I've got to rescue acorns. Okay. All right, I got stuff to do here, apparently. All right, so I'm going to be wandering around fighting spiders and rescuing trees. Probably most of the session here today. Okay, alright, here we are. That was kind of satisfying. Spiderling stomping, I mean. Not quite as satisfying as one-shotting that spider would have been. Okay, let's see, what do we have? 10, huh? Okay, the spiders of Fangorn are clearly no better than spiders anywhere in Middle-earth. They are evil and must be slain at any cost. Okay. That's fair. Alright. Hi, spiderlings. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that skill's not opened up yet. So, There we go. So what do you guys want to talk about today while Gryfflet wanders about fighting spiders all day long? Let me start with a leftover lore question. Hang on a second. In the midst of solving my technical difficulties, I covered up my lore questions. There we are. Okay. All right. All right, let me talk about this one. First of all, I saw you guys chatting about Malbeth and Arvedui a little bit before I started. While I was still wrestling with my audio outputs, and yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to agree. Absolutely, Malbeth's prophecy. Of course, Malbeth must have been a fairly cheerful guy to be around. There's something very kind of Old Testament prophet about Malbeth the Seer. That is to say, like, in the sense that he has a really unattractive job, right? And that I'm sure, you know, he at least ran a quite significant risk of great unpopularity with the king, like Arvedui. I mean, seriously, like, you want to go to the king and say, I'm going to call you Last King. I think that's what your name should be, right? Because that's not really something that any king is going to want to know. But, oh, no, another group of spiderlings. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. So anyway, yeah, Malbeth had a fairly undesirable job. No, he did not communicate his prophecies to the South Kingdom. There's no evidence that he did anything of the kind. But again, that's not, you know, that sort of wasn't his job. And I don't think that the South Kingdom would have given him the time of day, honestly. I mean, to be perfectly frank, I think the South Kingdom was really quite sort of patient, honestly. Like, they responded to the suggestion, hey, like, Mr. Triumphant General from the royal house who's just been crowned king in, you know, recognition of your victory on the battlefield. Why don't you abdicate in favor of the king from the North Kingdom, right? I mean, that's not a kind of suggestion with a pretty high likelihood of success. But again, I think that their response was fairly restrained under the circumstances. But here's the thing that really kind of strikes me. I was thinking about this after one of our previous Mythgard Academy classes. What happened? Oh, I leveled up. As you see, look at that. I cleared out my legendary items. Maxed out. I did some inventory and legendary item management with Gryfflet, so that's good. I still need to upgrade my legendary items. I'm still using, what am I using? I'm using my level 75 one, so it's not awful, but they're almost 10 levels out, and I gotta find a new medium bridle. The ones I keep finding on drops are always light or heavy. Anyway, one of the things I've been, as most of you know, and as I've mentioned already before several times, in the Mythgard Academy classes on Wednesday nights, we've been reading the history of Middle-earth, and when we were in the process of doing the history of the Lord of the Rings and looking at the, looking at the. Oh wait, no, I need spinners, not web hunters. Those aren't going to count. Okay, to be selective, unless you have a separate quest arrow or ring above your head. No, don't see one. All right, then I'll spare you. Anyway, so whoa, boss spider. Holy cow, she's huge. My goodness. Hang on a second. I'm gonna have a snack. Then I'm gonna tackle you. Not literally. tackle you, because that would be disturbing. Okay. Let's have some consumables. Yeah, she's one of my targets. Don't worry, I'm not going to lose sight of her. I mean, mostly lose sight, theoretically. Okay. All right. Let's see. Hi. Oh, no. I don't really want to get that close. Okay. All right. Swell. Thank you, Dimil. One down. Okay, anyway. History of Middle-earth. Sorry. I have a harder time than usual keeping my train of thought today. So, one of the things that I have been interested by. So, in the first version, we talked about this a little bit at Exploring the Lord of the Rings last week, I think. One of the... One of the things that Tolkien changed. So when he first did the Council of Elrond, was the first time that he was really developing the idea of the Kingdom of Gondor. So like when Boromir shows up to the Council of Elrond, it really is like the whole kind of introduction and the moment at which Tolkien really begins to develop the concept of Gondor and you know the whole Gondor story. So the original Gondor story, or to say the same thing another way, the original Return of the King plot, or like the extent to which the Lord of the Rings contained a Return of the King plot, went like this. So the ancient story of Gondor and the Dunedain was that the Gondor... So, as was always the case, and I've alluded to this a couple times in the last couple weeks, it's a fairly common pattern in Tolkien's world for one of, like, either a single person, like Galadriel. She's not a single person in the sense that she's married and is accompanied usually by another person, but you know what I mean. Or, you know, sometimes a group of people come to a land and are accepted, and not only accepted, but like made rulers, right? So like the Númenóreans return to Middle-earth, and there's a bunch of other men who are still living in Middle-earth, but they accept the Númenóreans as their, you know, as their leaders, as their rulers. That situation, that situation in Gondor was, in Tolkien's original conception, one that was, at least historically, sort of fraught. That basically, you know, Elendil and Isildur and the Númenóreans came to Middle-earth, were accepted, established the Kingdom of Gondor. But the reason that there are no more Númenórean kings in Gondor is that there came a moment where the Gondorian people got together and kicked them out. Like, they basically rebelled against the Númenóreans and said, we don't want no more Númenórean kings, you guys are not welcome here. And it was at that point that the Númenóreans went north and established the North Kingdom. That's when Fornost originally, Annúminas wasn't the initial conception. That's when Fornost was established by the Númenóreans in exile from Gondor, basically. That was where they were initially exiled from. So, so the story of Aragorn and his return to Minas Tirith is one of reconciliation, essentially. And you can still hear a memory of it. The thing that Aragorn says, when he says to Boromir, would you have, you know, the House of Elendil return to Minas Tirith, right? In the original version of the council, that was a much more weighted question, right? I mean, as you can see the sort of the political weight, right, and significance of that. So And by the way that story was, the way that story was kind of worked out, or where he was planning to take that, in these same earlier drafts, was Aragorn rather. When Aragorn got to Minas Tirith. So the Lord of Minas Tirith was always slated for an early death. He wasn't called the Steward originally. He was just the Lord of Minas Tirith, right? Like the heir of the guy who took over when the Númenóreans were kicked out. And he wasn't even named originally. He was just called the Lord of Minas Tirith. So the Lord of Minas Tirith, Boromir's dad, was always slated to die an early death at some point in the conflict. Not the full sort of Madness of Denethor story. That didn't come until later. But, like, Tolkien knew that that dude was, not going to pull through. So when the Lord of Minas Tirith dies, the people of Gondor, decide. So Aragorn is there. And he's sort of there openly, and Boromir is there too. Boromir does not die, so Boromir and Aragorn are both there in town, and the people have to decide. Okay, what do we want? Do we want the House of Elendil to return to Minas Tirith, or not so much? Right? Do we want to kind of keep going, the way that we've been going, and basically they kind of I don't know that they actually hold an election, or whether it's an acclaim thing, or there's some kind of council or something. I'm not sure exactly what the mechanism for this was going to be, but it was going to be again not an inheritance thing, but an election thing, and the people were going to choose Aragorn. Aragorn was gonna get elected king, so it was a big Return of the King issue. But again, as you can see, Return of the King in a very different way. So Tolkien, of course, abandoned these ideas, or most of these ideas, and of course ended up going in a very different direction, as you know, with the Return of the King plot. But this, I'm coming back to Arvedui here. Arvedui and Malbeth the Seer, because when Tolkien was sort of working out the backstory there, right? When he was when Tolkien was writing the appendices, essentially, it's one of the things that we notice and we kind of joke about in the Mythgard Academy classes. Tolkien almost never throws anything away. He's an extremely conservative writer. He's quick to revise and really niggling about making changes, but he almost never chucks anything. If he has an idea, even whole sentences and things, paragraphs, he almost never just cuts anything, or rather, if he cuts it, I often joke that he seems to have had a drawer in which he kept all of the passages or characters or things that he cut from the the stuff that he was doing, because it'll come back in later on. He'll end up giving it to somebody else, or putting it in somewhere else or something. And I think with Arvedui and Malbeth the Seer, we can see the same thing, right? He abandoned this idea of, this historical tension between the Númenóreans and the sort of native Gondorians, and their turning away from Númenor and then coming back to it. He decided not to go there, and ended up taking the personal stories, the personal character arcs of Aragorn, Boromir, and Denethor into quite different directions, right? But he didn't forget the idea, right? He didn't ditch it. It went into his little drawer, right, of, big drawer, probably, of sort of cut passages and displaced ideas, and pull it out again when he was writing the appendices. So we see that this idea of the choice of Gondor, that there was a point in history way back when Gondor made the choice to say, House of Elendil, no, we're good, right? We understand Earnor is lost, and he probably won't, show up again in any epic quest line or other. So, we need to, but we're fine. We're gonna establish a king outside the line of Elendil. We don't need the line of Elendil here. Thank you very much. And then, of course, later on, they're going to embrace that, right? Gondor will reverse that choice not to embrace the House of Elendil with Arvedue, right? So, even though that story, the original story of Gondor and Aragorn and Boromir and Denethor and everybody seems really weird compared to the story that we're used to. And it seems like, wow, he really changed it a lot. He totally did change it a lot. And yet, he didn't lose it, right? He still kind of kept that around. I totally agree, JJ. Boromir's arc ended up much better in the published form. Indeed, Boromir ended up defecting. He lost like the election, and got really mad, and basically kind of walked out. Hang on a second, there's some over here. I gotta find another Huorn maybe. And ended up like joining with the enemy and becoming a bad guy. It was kind of sad. Oh, hey, look, it's what's her name, Fynoth. All right, now I get the web hunters. All right, yeah, he runs off and joins Saruman. That's right. Saruman was kind of the big bad. Not the whole big bad. I mean, Sauron always was. But I mean, it was Saruman's army that they were fighting at the Battle of Pelennor Field. Like, he kind of... the Battle of Helm's Deep sort of arose. I mean, the initial time when he was sketching forward the plot and what was going to happen, like the Rohirrim barely even existed as a glimmer in his mind. So the whole Battle of Helm's Deep thing wasn't really part of what he was doing. But hang on a second. I will remember to reveal weaknesses this time, like an honest burglar. There we go. Okay. Anyway, anyway, like I said, I always find it fun looking at the early stuff and seeing, as I was discussing this past Wednesday, I love the thing that I have enjoyed so much about the History of Middle-earth series and our discussions of them in Mythgard Academy has been tracing the story of the story, just like watching how these things all develop in Tolkien's mind, and what we can see of the sort of the drama of how this unfolds. And I think it's pretty awesome, pretty exciting. Anyway. Okay. Yes. The Balrog of Moria was, for one brief and disturbing moment, Saruman in a mask. Or not actually a mask. Like, there is not like a Scooby-Doo reveal, right, of the Balrog, in fact. But yeah, it was actually Saruman, which is really funny, right? Like, we were reading about that, and I just couldn't, like, get out of my head the picture of Gandalf being on the bridge of Khazad-dûm and saying, like, and then, like, imagining, like, a cutscene to the Jackson film, "It's Saruman!" Right? And I'm like, oh my goodness. But no, he did very briefly consider that. And there, I think that my sense of, like, how that sort of fits with what Tolkien was doing in that moment, right? Because, I mean, it might seem a little bit strange because, one could ask very sensibly, but wait a second, didn't he, like, invent the Balrogs decades earlier than Saruman? Like, why would he, like, having said, hey, it's a Balrog, why didn't he stick to that? Because that was cool. Like, that was an established thing, Balrogs. And it's true, but basically, my sense there is that basically it's not that he was like having second thoughts about Balrogs or the existence of Balrogs or something. They were well-established characters within his mythology long since. I think the question was whether, like, what he was having sort of doubts about was whether or not he really wanted to deploy one under these circumstances, essentially. Because they did exist and they were kind of a big deal. So, like, did he really want to go there? Did he really want to, did he really want one of the Balrogs of Morgoth, in fact, to show up at this moment in The Lord of the Rings? So I think when he was contemplating the Saruman thing, it was mostly like kind of a sort of a doubt on that front. Like, is this really a good idea? Do I really want to, cross those streams right here? Is this like too much? Is this like, bad guy overkill here? And in the end, of course, he stuck with it. As I think we're all glad that he did. But, yeah, so, JJ, I've never thought explicitly about Scooby-Doo and Who on the Hound parallels, but, I mean, it's one of those things which, like, once suggested, seems certainly logical enough. Oh, hey, look, it's the other... No, wait, it's the same one. That's the one I've already killed. Isn't it? Isn't that D-Mill? Yeah, it is. No. I killed you once. I don't need to kill you twice. That would be bad guy overkill. How many of you do I need? I still got 3 more of you. Yeah. JJ, I think the most jarring thing about that parallel, that is the Scooby-Doo and Huon parallel, is I can't reconcile even the name of Huon with the visual image of, like, the cowardly dog leaping into someone else's arms for comfort. Like, that's just, like, so not Huon in, like, that, wildly exaggerated trembling with fear that Scooby-Doo does. Yeah. There are certain similarities between Huon and Scooby-Doo, but they are few, and I think less important than the differences between the two of them. Okay, hey, all right, Spiders of Fangorn 2. I've defeated a great many spiders. I certainly have. Okay, good. I'm glad that my efforts are having lasting effects. Is there a third subspecies of spider that I'm going to be set after now? Probably. Hang on, who's over here? Nornbess? Oh, there she is. She's right there. Okay. All right. I think I'll just call her Bess for short. Hey, Bess. Be all right with you. I just need to... Where's my thing? There it is. Just going to do that. There you go. Now, I'm going to see if I can get some positional damage advantage on my first attack. There we go. Okay, great. Cool. Oh, sorry. I should probably concentrate on the boss I'm trying to fight here. Okay, by the way, not trying to imply any actual influence in either direction, frankly, between Scooby-Doo and Who on the Hound. Besides which, Who on the Hound well preceded Scooby-Doo. Who on the Hound was invented like before 1920. Who on the Hound is a fixture of the very first version, the Book of Lost Tales version of the Tale of Tinuviel. So, Huon is an ancient and classic part of the Luthien story, and so therefore much older than the name Luthien, for instance. She was just called Tinuviel at first. But it could well influence Huon's portrayal in any adaptations. I hope to God that is not so. JJ's, I guess what I would say to that. Okay. Yeah, Mariel shares my sentiments on that point. Okay. What else was I talking about? Arvedui, back to... you're so bad, JJ. Okay. Trying to think, was there another question that I had started talking about and got distracted, as is exceptionally likely. So I'm looking for acorns. Am I still in the right place? I think I am. Oh, I need the one more acorn. Oh, there's one. Okay. Anyway, let me answer another question then. Boromir. Yeah, Boromir. I think, no, that was a sort of digression too. Anyway, whatever. It's fine. Let me get to David Holquin's question from a couple weeks back. With Amazon's Lord of the Rings series set in the Second Age, apparently, we should say, set in the Second Age, based on the evidence of the map, what are some of the standout prominent characters and events you think they have to show and involve? Okay, so it's going to depend in large part on how much of the drama of the Númenóreans they actually showcase, right? So my one primary response to that question, what do I think they have to include in the show as they're covering Second Age stuff? My primary answer is Aldarion and Erendis. There is only one story, real story, not historical overview, but personal story that Tolkien ever told of the Second Age. And that's the story of Aldarion and Erendis. So Aldarion was king. Well, he was the heir to the king of Númenor. And so we get sort of his whole story and how he becomes this great mariner, one of the first of the Númenóreans to, certainly of the Númenórean kings, to become sort of fixated on sea voyaging and exploration. And he has this complicated relationship with Erendis, who is a beautiful woman with whom he falls in love, and the two of them fall in love, though they have sort of misgivings, especially her misgivings about how the marriage will turn out. And of course it turns out that I'm done with all my quests. I was kind of waiting for a Spiders of Fangorn 3 coming to theaters this summer, but I guess I'm not getting one. So I'm going to go back and find my friend the rescued Huorn, tell him I did all the things. Anyway, so the relationship of Aldarion and Erendis, their story, is a really compelling one, and it's fascinating because it is one of the few examples and one of the most heartbreaking example, certainly, of an unhappy marriage in Tolkien's world. That is not an extremely common phenomenon in The Lord of the Rings and Silmarillion history. Very often, of course, marriages are, depicted as sort of more heroic, right? That they are, stories that are sort of like the Beren and Luthien story are more. It's not like it's not impossible for like one person in a marriage to like screw up or something. But anyway, just a marriage that doesn't work out between two people, and they end up permanently estranged, is a very unusual story in Tolkien's world. And that is the story of Aldarion and Arendis. And Tolkien tells it with, I think, very remarkable emotional and psychological sensitivity to both sides. I think it's very, very interesting and well done. So their story not only is the story of Aldarion and Arendis the only sort of close to the ground personal story of Númenóreans in Númenor in the Second Age that Tolkien ever wrote, and so that by itself is certainly kind of necessitates that it be told in the TV series, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's like, as a bonus, the like one Second Age Númenórean story is like a made-for-TV story, so like cool. But as an extra bonus, it takes place at right around the time of the forging of the Rings of Power. One of the elements of the story, of course, is that Aldarion is the Númenórean guy who first comes back to Middle-earth and first establishes connections with Gil-galad, and becomes the ally and friend of Gil-galad, and through Gil-galad learns of the growing darkness in Middle-earth and the problems that they've been having. So those are obviously, it can be connected into the larger Lord of the Rings story, which is what I assume the primary interest in the Second Age is going to be. I don't see them doing multiple seasons of intricately developed storylines within Númenor before they ever get to Middle-earth or anything like that. I think that the show's primary interest in the Second Age is going to be thinking about the setups for the forging of the Rings of Power, right? The setup for the for the storyline that's gonna be coming down the road. Sorry, Edith, I am reading your question and trying to think of what I can say. It's hard because I've talked to... Edith is asking about, hearing about... She said, I heard the Amazon series fired Tom Shippey. Is that true? Sorry, it's hard because I've talked to Tom, but I know that he would not want me to reveal most of the things that he told me, so I can't really comment on it. I will say it's not that simple. I don't think that's exactly what happened like that. Like they just up and fired Tom Shippey. I'm pretty sure not what occurred there. Yeah. Sorry, I can't really say it. I'm trying to figure out what I'm like. No, I don't think I can safely say anything about that. So I will confine myself to saying it's certainly not that simple. But something, is he still involved? I don't believe so. I am not 100% sure if that is a permanent state of affairs, but I do not believe that he is involved as of right now. the yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny that statement. Yeah. It is true that the whole production is shut down right now because of the isolation situation. That also I have heard, though that I don't have any inside information on. I've just heard the same thing as you there. Okay. All right. Yeah. Check out these acorns. Right. There we go. I saved them from certain doom. Okay. Oh, I should scatter them in the sunlight? Okay. Sure. I can do that. Let's see. I freed other horns. He looks they're not the most expressive of creatures. Oh, good. But his whole affect speaks of his relief. Okay. All right. Great. Maybe what you saw is not but a passing fancy, but you choose to believe that you made this horn very happy by freeing its poor friends. The horn bristles with pleasure as you relay the events of your battles against the 3 great spider mistresses of the Silken Hold. The forest here will be safer now without them spreading their evil, light-smothering brood across the forest. That's right. You know, it would be... I would kind of hope to meet this horn again, right? You know, after this... oh, wait, hang on. Where's the sunlight? Patch of sunlight. After we... like, wouldn't it be cool if, like, after the Battle of Helm's Deep, you know, when you're seeing the strange forest in Helm's Deep, that you meet, like, this particular horn comes up and says hi, right? That would be fun. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna go back up to my horn friend. Oh, where'd you go, horn friend? There you are. Let's see. Pleased and relieved. While this deed was not exactly what Gandalf asked you to focus on, you feel as if you have done right by Fangorn nonetheless. Hey, I can't imagine Gandalf objecting. Like, is Gandalf going to discriminate against horns? Be like, Ents only. Horns don't matter. No way, man. Besides, like, I was about to say I've got to be building rep with the Ents. But I don't actually get rep with Ents. Why don't I get rep with Ents? I should have Ent rep, shouldn't I? Yeah, it would be really cool if, like, other horns stopped attacking me because, like, word is spread that I am, like, the great friend of horns. But see, maybe that's just further evidence of, like, the ultimately independent nature of trees. Okay, oh, hang on. The, like, music just changed. What happened here? Okay, I'm still moving. All right, I gotta go this way still, vaguely, to continue doing good and righting wrongs in Fangorn. Unfortunately, the walking tree was much more influential, right? Still not able to efface Gryfflet's initial reputation among the horns of Middle-earth, right? Ooh, the Black Heart. The Black Heart. It's funny because it's very white here, actually. I mean, I know it's foggy, but the whole forest seems aglow. Black Heart, huh? Hey, Mr. Ent. Green Root, is it? Good to meet you. I have a bunch of Ent friends. I might not have reputation with Ents as a faction, but I've had many charming interactions with your kind. Another sleeping Ent. A sense of dread looming near this place. Oh. Oh, sorry. I thought this was just like signing up for the rewards. Let's see. You're going to give me loot? That's nice of you. It's Ent-loot. I would be happy to receive some Ent-loot. Let's see. No, I don't want those. That's a mite necklace. Helm of the Acorn Friend? That's the coolest name anyway. Let's see. Helm of the Acorn Friend. And let's check this out here. See, I think that was a little bit of an upgrade too. Yeah, that was. Oh, the black heart? That's the black heart? Oh, okay. That makes sense. As you approach this Ent, you feel the weight of a heavy grief upon the air around him like a grey mist. This Ent withers under the powerful sadness. Oh, man. Withers. That's harsh. It is clear that the sadness consumes the Ent Greenroot, but you cannot help him if you do not know why. You wait a moment for a memory to be impressed upon you, but Greenroot has retreated into his own slow thoughts. Not even any memories, huh? Okay. Let's look around for... This is an awfully brightly lit place, for a place where light cannot shine. Let's look around for clues. Not sure what I'm looking for. Wait, corpse of a Huorn? Where is that? Oh, that... Seriously? Alright, Bat. I will take you out, but under no conditions am I going to examine your poop. I've had quite enough of that, thank you. Here we are. Oh no, a dead Huorn? I didn't do it. It's not my fault. The corpse of a fell-looking, blackened Huorn. So... Okay. It's fell-looking? Does that mean that it was nobly slain by like a heroic person, like it, or that it was... Oh no, that's a scar and deposit. Oh, here's another. A different corpse of a different Huorn? A dead young Huorn falling prey to some terrible anguish. See, now that's obviously tragic. The first one might have been less tragic if, like, the Huorn had gone bad, which is, of course, in its way more tragic. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the, like, is this supposed to be dark? Am I living in, like, you know, photo negative world here? What's going on? Oh no, that's just a black-hearted Huorn, which I don't really need. I'm supposed to be finding more stuff to... Okay, going the wrong way. Presumably more Huorn corpses. Oh wait, a blackened root. Seems promising. Okay. Patch of blackened roots with no further comment. And then, hi Greenroot, I'm trying to discover the cause of your sadness. What? Hang on. It says something over there. A rusted? Infested stump. I see. An infested stump. Infested with what? A sickened stump covered in writhing worms. Ooh. Okay. All right, Greenroot. I don't know that I have the solution to this, but I would say based on previous precedents, that there is some evil power exerting a malign influence and doing the desolation thing, which we've observed under many circumstances. You tell Greenroot you saw the state of his herd, corrupted, twisted, polluted, blackened by evil influences. He closes his eyes sadly as you recount what you saw. You want nothing more than to help this lonely Ent be free from the pain of watching his trees turn so evil. Agreed. All right, you can do nothing for Greenroot. By consoling him, you must venture into the shadows of the Black Heart. You must try to understand the place before you can hope to heal it. I shall sally forth and heroically take soil samples. Boy, that's something you don't get to say every day. All right. Boy, just trying to walk around this tree. It's non-trivial. I don't think I can... Yeah, no, I can't. Gryfflet has to get his crafting up to scratch here. Okay. Oh, wait, hang on. After wandering far and wide, I have discovered some soil. I never thought to look under the greenery. Oh, infested with crawlers? That's disgusting. I didn't even notice them. No, I don't want to fight the soil. I want to fight the crawlers. Yeah, pretty much like that. I just one-shotted a lot of them. It's a little bit awesome. Okay. Hey, there's a bunch of soil right there, or this patch, maybe. Looks like a burial plot. Hideous crawlers. All right. These soil samples are proving fairly conclusive. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So anyway, thinking back again to the Second Age plot, question. The other thing, of course, that I would say, just when thinking about Numenor in general, is obviously down the road, Sauron and Numenor is a story that I think we have to tell, right? But even before that, the tension between the faithful and the king's men, and the growing unrest of the men, beginning to sort of establish that trajectory for the fall of the Númenóreans, not only as a sort of culmination to the Númenórean story itself, to show their fall and how it came about, but also as a setup for the Lord of the Rings story. I mean, there's a lot of parallels, of course, between the fall of Númenor and the fall of Gondolin, so investing some time in showing why the unrest of the Númenóreans was growing, why they were susceptible to Sauron, and how their kingdom came about, sinking into the ocean, is something I think would have a lot of payoff down the road for when you're depicting Third Age stuff. Yeah. So Phil, you would need to show them at their height to emphasize the fall. So that's where Aldarion would do for me, as far as the showing them at their height thing, right? Okay. Evil-looking flies. Oh, man. Swat the flies. I should defeat some of the flies. Skittering in the dark. Okay. Skittering in the dark. Reference to the sounds Bilbo heard in Mirkwood, which, like in those huge insect eyes that appeared outside the fire, which are probably spiders, but could also be flies. It's also kind of a joke on the title of the chapter, right? Flies and spiders. Of course, in the joke in the book, obviously, is that I love how the flies are like roaming around on the ground. Would not have expected that. Anyway. I know spiders don't have compound eyes, but you know what? They also don't have stingers, so... what can I say? Okay. Oh wait, I can't enter stealth mode? Why not? What's preventing me entering stealth mode? Being poisoned? Is that my problem? Am I poisoned? Yes, I am. Now I can enter stealth mode. Okay. Alright, am I still in the right zone here? Yes. Okay, this is where I got flies, but I'm out of the range for soil samples. Right, of course. Yeah, spiders also aren't as big as horses. I've also noticed that trend, that the majority of spiders that I have met also have been noticeably smaller than horses. So yeah, many variations from personal experience to be observed in the spiders of Mirkwood. Unless you're in Australia. True, that's a fair exception, of course. There, the spiders clearly are as large as horses. Yeah, that seems right. Okay. All right. Oh. Still one there hiding. Okay, great. All right. Let me do another question then. Phil, let's see. Thanks, Phil. Okay, Zach. Zach had asked an English question. Any recommendations for poets to read for someone who is trying to become more appreciative of poetry and who enjoys Tolkien's poetry? Okay. So, there are two different recommendations I would make there. And rather than... okay, there aren't too many specific poets that I would recommend because I'm not sure that they will do they'll serve the function that you're looking for. Okay. The two recommendations I would make are, first, to read some romantics. Read some Wordsworth and Keats, especially. The Romantics were highly influential on really all of the Inklings. The Inklings were pretty big Romanticism fans. And even though Tolkien is sort of less explicitly indebted to the Romantics than somebody like C.S. Lewis, still there's some definite relevance there. So I would definitely recommend some, as I say, especially Wordsworth and Keats. The other recommendation that I would make, if what you are interested in is just kind of like so if you enjoy our discussions of Tolkien's poetry, like in Exploring the Lord of the Rings, and the way in which we're kind of talking about the way that Tolkien is sort of playing with, with rhyme and structure and different rhythms and things, that is like the sort of the play with the mechanics of poetry. The primary recommendation I would have would be the metaphysical poets. I just love the metaphysical poets, and this is like the same. I recommend them because not just because I love them, but because what I love about them is some of the most similar stuff to the stuff that I love about Tolkien's poetry. Yeah, that's interesting, JJ. The Romantics were a large part of your not liking English classes. Look, the Romantics aren't for everybody, and I always felt there hasn't been... I do not personally connect with Romantics in the same way that certainly that C.S. Lewis did, and even ways in which I think Tolkien probably did. That's just... It's never been my experience. I always feel that the Romantics take themselves more than a little bit too seriously. It really looked like that fly was on the vertical surface there, which is unusual for insects in Lotro. Anyway, so yeah, I will have to admit, JJ, that like I spent a good deal of my time in my romantic poetry class as an undergraduate kind of teasing, like laughing, and mostly good-naturedly at the Romantics and how very, very seriously they took themselves. But I think that of the Romantics, therefore, sort of the easiest one to like, I always found is Keats. On the spectrum of like how seriously they take themselves, and like the kind of how grandiose are the airs they give themselves. There's kind of a spectrum there, and I find Keats sort of closer to the bottom of that one. But others may not agree with me on that, but interesting. Yeah, Phil says I had to suffer World War I poetry for my O level, which didn't do much for my appreciation. I hear that. I'm not a fan of most 20th century poetry, honestly. I would not. If you're enjoying the poetry discussions we're having and exploring the Lord of the Rings, don't read other 20th century poetry, whatever you do. Because Tolkien was extremely unusual in his love for poetic structure. That was the move away from formalized structure in poetry was all the rage in the very first quarter, the very first part, like in the in the aughts and teens of the 20th century onwards. So, that was what, in my personal opinion, has like sort of steered poetry in the 20th century sort of down towards the abyss, from which it has fortunately, been saved by rap. But anyway, which has fortunately recovered the formal art of poetry and taken it to a sublime new level. But it was in the doldrums for a long time. Okay. It is clear that the black heart is rotten from its very roots, with vile crawlers squirming out of every patch of mud. Yeah, I agree that does seem to be a problem. What could do this? Many blackened swaths of land are barren even of the twisted plants that grow in the darkest part of the forest. What happened here to turn the black heart so rotten? I don't know. We need to do some more investigation, and I have a horrible feeling it's going to involve investigating poop. The trees in the black heart of Fangorn are evil to the core, coming after you without provocation with a worrisome bloodlust. I'm not sure the solution to that problem is to slaughter them all, but... No, I'm not done with black flies. I thought I was. Oh, good. You're my last one. Let's see. Sorry, I shouldn't start reading the comments before I finish the combat. You've rid the forest of many a harrying evil insect. Many insect. Agreed. This act was a kindness to all inhabitants of Fangorn. Absolutely. Okay. Great. So I've got to defeat corrupted horns and examine patches of earth for answers, neither of which can be done in this area. I've got to go down towards Treebeard Steppe. Interesting. Okay. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of things here. Wow, steep hill. I am getting to the bottom of things, apparently. Yeah, I have no brief to defend modern, that is to say 20th and 21st century poetry. I don't think I would take that brief if someone offered it to me. I am not a fan. Again, what I love about to me, poetry is what I love about poetry is the play of words. It's like the music of words, right? Like Tolkien said, of is Manway's delight. Manway and I have that in common. I also am delighted by the music of words. And I would add just like that. Words at play, right? Words at play delight and amuse me. So when a poet such as Tolkien is doing, the kinds of fun things that he does, and it's fun. It's wonderful and it's inspiring and all that kind of thing. But I have to admit that 20th century poetry, not only, like, it's not just that it has deviated from, sort of left behind the tradition of, poetic structure and meter, which in my opinion makes it really fun. It also has had a really pernicious effect on the teaching of poetry. I don't know how many of you had this experience in school. Where your English teacher, read you a poem, and then the whole thing you were supposed to do, as a student in response to the poem was feel stuff, right? Were you ever told things like, it's about how it makes you feel, poetry is about this whole trend towards poetry as mere emotional expression. Some kind of crystallized emotional experience focused almost entirely, if not entirely, on self-expression. That is the self-expression of the artist, which means, of course, that if you as reader don't like it or don't get it, it literally doesn't matter. That a poem that you don't understand, that conveys nothing to you, is not a bad poem. It just means that you're an insensitive reader. It proves you're obviously not the kind of reader that poet was trying to communicate with, because you're insufficiently sensitive. And I just look, I'm not trying to make fun of poems that modern people write, and say that every poem written in the last 100 years is horrible, outside of rap music. What I'm saying is that I find that entire approach to poetry, that entire way of thinking about poetry as a form of art, to be diseased. Basically, you can express your emotions that way if you want to. It's totally fine. I'm not going to judge anybody who wants to, give vent to their emotion in verse. But the idea that in any art form, really, the whole point, it's the idea that art is totally personal and subjective and just about self-expression is an extremely limited idea. Art used to be for much more than that, and the way in which it's been just kind of in the minds of many people. And I'm not really primarily blaming artists or primarily blaming teachers, but this is a thing that I've encountered a lot as an English teacher, that a lot of students have, absorbed this idea, whether that absorption was the fault of their English teachers or not, that's the essence of art, that is the essence of poetry, is individual self-expression. And, if you don't get it and you don't like it, that's your problem. And I think that is a very sad and limited way of looking at art and at poetry. He just says the fact that nobody understands you doesn't make you an artist/poet. Yeah, it also might mean you're a bad communicator. Again, like if nobody gets your poem, it might be you. There's a chance. Like, you can't rule out the fact that it might be you and not them. Oh man, who's lopping the trees down? That tree was cut. Didn't rot. Yeah, that was an enormous stump. Like that was cut with a saw. Okay, I found a barren patch. The land itself remembers the cruelties done to the trees and will not grow. Okay. Ah. Interesting. So I'm getting the memory of the earth. Oh, that is deep stuff right there. Okay, and it is remembering orcs. So that's why there's a stump. Okay, it's all coming together. The violence being done to the forest by Saruman and his orcs. Gotcha. All right, let me try to go up and find some more barren patches along with other Huorns. Why is my mini-map trying to take me that way when my maxi map is telling me to go this way? It's a little odd. Ethelod says, we get taught that to write a poem, all we need is emotion and the words will just naturally come with it. Wow. Wow. Ethelod, I'm trying to think. I'm sure I could come up with some statements that I've heard lately that are more wrong than that, but it would be a challenge. I'd have to think hard in order to come up with that. Poetry, this is the thing that a lot of modern people dislike the idea of. Art is a craft. It's not just a skill. It is a craft. Like blacksmithing or carpentry, or like, there's not only skill, but there's like labor. Like, there is a craft to it that has to be refined. Being an effective writer is not something like, it's just an inborn talent at all. I'm not saying that there is no inborn talent that makes, predisposes one to be a good writer or a better writer. I'm just saying, great writers are not born. They develop through hard work. Yeah. No, it's wow. The land is remembering the cruelties done to the trees. Okay, this makes me uncomfortable because that kind of looks like the cruelty that I'm currently running around doing to the trees. Except I'm not carrying a torch, so I guess that's makes it better. Let's see. What do we remember here? What are they doing? Oh, chopping up the trees. Okay. Is that even the bad excuse of feeding the fires? Is that the idea? The barren patches of land in the Black Heart still bear the shades of terrible events in the past, long remembering the suffering of the trees. Where is the Ent you saw that once watched over these lands? If his realm has grown so dark, what has become of him? Yeah, maybe I should go find the Ent that once watched over these lands. He would be a good person to meet. Okay. But hang on, meanwhile, I've got to slay and dismember some walking trees. Okay. All right, Gryfflet, you're doing such a good job here, making progress. And Fangorn, Treebeard is going to be so happy to meet you. I bet he will have heard about what I did with the Huorn. Which direction was... What's his name? Greenroot? I think he was this way. Okay. Let's see. Anyway, like I say, I'm not trying to, set up my own personal likes and dislikes as a canon of appropriate taste in poetry or anything like that. But certainly what I try to share with folks during my, my own English classes and our Tolkien discussions, fortunately, the thing that I liked about poetry and the thing that I can't jump over that, seriously. And the thing that Tolkien clearly enjoyed about poetry and what he was really good at in his poetry are, very similar. Very, they fit together very nicely. Tolkien, of course, was much more sensitive than I to the sound of words. He was not only deeply moved by, but really loved to think about the sound of words and the effect of the music of language. He was somebody who, throughout his career as a philologist, at least played with the idea that there is, in fact, an intrinsic connection between sound and meaning. That that certain sounds and sound combinations in words convey, are tied in some way to the essence of things, right? Like that there are. Anyway, so this is his appreciation of phonoaesthetics. That is the attractiveness of the sound of words, sensitivity to the sound of words. Tolkien's interest in phonoaesthetics went beyond simply a kind of a recreational love for the sound of words and the development of the structure of his own poetry and the play of words in his own poetry, but to his actual philological ideas, his professional ideas as a scholar of language. All right. Oh, hang on. Something else here. In the shades of the past, you saw that an Ent once resided over this fell glade of Fangorn. Presided, maybe? Resided in? Presided over? You must search for him and see if he can be helped as Gandalf bid. Okay. Gather evidence of the guardian of the Black Heart. Oh, I thought it was alluding to our meeting Treebeard, but I guess not. Let's look for evidence. Jesse, I love errantry too. Errantry is so much... in poems like errantry, really in so many of the poems that Tolkien wrote, especially in the 20s, 20s and 30s, really actually even more the 30s, 20s and 30s. There's so many things that Tolkien wrote then which are just playful, right? Just playful, are pure fun. Things like the Man in the Moon poems and a bunch of the poems that you can read in the Adventures of Tom Bombadil volume, which he published, of course, in the early 60s. I'm like Fastatokalon. Oh man. Oh, hang on. Sense of fear, certain that hateful eyes are watching your every move. Oh man. Hang on, there's a rock. I need to look at this rock. Let's see. All right. Looks fairly normal. Oh, I throw it. Starved, ill, miserable creature who will kill me if I let him. Whoa. I'm letting him, apparently. Where is he? Whoa, there he is. Oh, man. Hey, guy. Root of Evil? Your name is Root of Evil? Hey, don't stomp on me. That's rude. Look, I don't want to... Can't we... Okay, so I guess what he needs is a nice therapeutic butt kicking. Is that... Okay, so I'm just going to engage in combat, hoping that that will help him snap out of his problem. I'd like to tell you that violence isn't the answer, except it appears to be my answer. Yeah. Yeah, JJ, I wonder if his parents named him that. Like, we will call him Root of Evil. You've ended the suffering of a tree that has long since stopped growing, whose heart was black and pained. Okay, I was really kind of hoping he would snap out of it and we could have a therapeutic session, but... The shadow is abated. You have ended the long suffering of this poor, twisted former guardian of the black heart. His realm was once hale, but he could not ward off the evil that crept into his realm and corrupted him to the core. I have questions. The shadows have long kept the foliage so hatefully dense that it blocked all light into the black heart. It is time to push back the leaves to let the light shine in once more. Oh, now I'm supposed to, like, chop down the other trees? I am not sure I'm going to be winning so many friends in this part of the forest. Hi, Treebeard. Yep. Slew one of your Ents and a bunch of the horns, and then I trimmed back a bunch of the trees, and you approve of all of these actions, I don't doubt. Where's the other guy? Where's the other dude? Oh, there we go. Yeah, Zach, that's exactly what tree parent voices are like. That's exactly it. All right. Oh, hey, Greenroot came to me. That was nice of him. He must have woken up some if he's... Hey there. Oh, yeah, look at you standing up and looking around. Hey, you get dialogue. Fantastic. You are a peculiar little creature. You are. I felt the shadows disappear. The light shines where my old... what is the word? Tarum, my old friend. He grew quite terrible here, quite sad, quite wrong. I'm glad you're not holding a grudge. You freed him from his prison. Well, that's one way of saying it. I like your spin, Greenroot. Let's run with that. I could not come in, or I would have rotted with the others. I slept at the edge of shadows, and I could not help but you let the light in by yourself. Cool. All right. Nice. Okay. One more sleeping Ent, huh? I don't suppose we'll get through his quest chain today, as we're running low on time. I'm going to need to end more or less on time today, unfortunately, even though I had to start a little bit late because of my technical difficulties. All right. Let's find our last Ent, though, at least. Let's do so slightly more stealthily. Okay. Hang on, though. I have a feeling like I didn't finish what I was... Oh, yeah. So I've got questions. My biggest question about the whole Blackheart quest chain there is chronology. The invasion of the forest and the wanton felling of trees by orcs is relatively new. Quite new, really. Quite recent, that is to say. So it's hardish for me to accept the idea that that was the cause of the, that Ent was, I mean, he's been corrupted in what, like the last very short window of time. I mean, Treebeard will barely have, to Treebeard, the active slaughtering of trees by orcs, by White Hand orcs, will have been, something that's happened in the last 15 minutes, It's not literally 15 minutes, but like in Treebeard time, it's going to feel like 15 minutes. It's not been very long. I don't think it can even be dated back to when Saruman began to go bad, It's not just... Yeah, I mean, his sending out White Hand orcs to do bad things is much more recent. Like, I don't know what, months, perhaps, since that's been happening. So, I don't find. I mean, I love the concept. I love the concept that. So yeah, the root concept, if I can be forgiven for calling it that, the root concept of the whole Blackheart area, that great evil was done, that the wanton hacking and hewing and burning by the orcs is an act of evil that is remembered by the land itself, which then bears, or no longer bears healthy and fruitful creatures, but is twisted and corrupted, which, like corruption, twists and affects even the guardian Ent, or that he has been so embittered and twisted by seeing the suffering of the trees that he has become evil. I mean, in a sense, you could say that Mr. Root of Evil over there is like Quickbeam as he might have been, right? I mean, if Quickbeam does not have a positive response to his suffering and the suffering of his people, right, of his trees, he could easily go in that direction, right? So I that story, I like that story. That story seems to me to be developing a really important theme in Tolkien, really. It's just the chronology that I dislike. Yeah, JJ says, so the bonfire glade could have turned out very differently. Yeah. Well, JJ, I'd say, or did it turn out differently, right? That is to say, the land still remembers. That's why the bonfire glade exists. The land still remembers. The trees still remember what the hobbits did, and haven't forgiven them for it. It's one of the reasons why the old forest, the forest itself, and not merely its, fauna, right, are hostile to the hobbits. So, yeah, I'm not sure it's 100% different, actually. I mean, there's no evidence that, disgusting rotworms are, leaping forth from the ground in the old forest, but it seems actually a similar kind of, maybe the old forest wouldn't be such a creepy place, or to return back to something that I was saying earlier, maybe the trees of the old forest wouldn't be so susceptible to the domination of Old Man Willow, if they were not already inclined towards anger, vengeance, and retribution for the harms that had been done to them. Yeah, it's hard to say, Phil. So, I mean, is Old Man Willow the equivalent in the Old Forest, like the equivalent of Mr. Root of Evil? Maybe of Evil was just their family name. So they just named him Root, which is a fine name to name an Ent. And, so people were like, so Mr. and Mrs. of Evil, what are you going to name your boy? And they're like, Root. But anyway, no, the hostility of the Old Forest did predate the bonfire. But again, the bonfire and the bonfire, that's what Merry remembers, right? But his memory is not as detailed and does not stretch back as far as the memory of the forest, right? The situation described there, and we talked about this in Exploring the Lord of the Rings, the idea of, the hobbits and the relationship that they have with the earth, right, makes a lot of people love that passage, and therefore like to think about the hobbits as sort of like the idea of hobbits being antagonistic to, the nature, to living creatures seems alien to the concept of hobbits. But as we discussed in Exploring the Lord of the Rings, hobbits are farmers, and farmers in forests can't be friends. Like, the farmers and the forests do not agree about how things should go. And farmers are going to do things like clear-cut land in order to farm it, right? And so Buckland, I am sure if you told the history of Buckland from the point of view of the forest, right, from the point of view of the trees, they would tell a very different history, right? Which would probably have begun, I'm sure the first thing that the old bucks did when they crossed the river was clear some land, right? For better farming country. So, is it a disrespectful thing to do? Is that not being in touch with the earth? No, like, they're farmers, right? They do have a relationship with the earth, right? But that means they exist at cross purposes with trees and forests at many points, right? In that way, it's a very natural kind of competition between the hobbits and the forests. Anyway, yes, nonetheless, they will have need of wood, JJ. That is well remembered, right? That's Aule's perspective. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, so does the hostility of the Old Forest predate the bonfire? Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to claim that hobbits are the reason the Old Forest is dark, right? That, like, if it weren't for, like, the, like, hideous imperialist crimes of the Brandybucks against the Old Forest, then the Old Forest would be a pleasant and lovely grove. No, obviously the Old Forest, the whole presence of the hobbits in the Shire is a mere blink in the eye compared to the long life of the Old Forest. So obviously it's not the root cause of why it's like that, but yeah, certainly the hostility the hostility goes back for a long time. And again, it's not without justification from the tree's point of view, right? And remember, thinking about things from the tree's point of view is one of the things that the hobbits are given a glimpse of in the House of Tom Bombadil, right? Which is kind of fun, which is kind of interesting. Okay. All right, Old Heart. An Ent standing at the edge of a fair meadow. Hey, man. This Ent has let his roots grow long in a beautiful meadow out of the shadow of Blackheart, but his eyes show that he is deeply worried about something. Okay. All right, I will speak to him. All right, hang on, Blackfly. Oh, memory. Let's go. That Blackfly will still be there when I come back. Let's see.
As Old Heart's memory unfolds, you feel long, long years of loneliness fluttering away as a tiny bird hops about the grass, peeping and cheeping away.
Peeping and cheeping. I can't see anything here, Old Heart. Is your memories like... Your memories are even more washed out than the rest of the forest. Why can't I see anything? What on earth is wrong here? Chirp, chirp. Okay, I assume there's a bird beneath that floaty text. I do not remember this part of the forest looking like this. Why is think there's an Ent there in the midst of the burning. Wow. Okay. There's no bird, JJ. The Ent's memory is only of the floaty text. That seems likely. You see a tiny bird flitting around in Old Heart's vivid memory, chirping happily away as it hops about. This memory fills you with painful worry. Why is the bird in a memory and not here in the flesh? The worry is Old Heart's. This bird is his friend. He wants you to find the little bird. Or perhaps alternatively, the great, grandchild of the bird, perhaps. All right, try to find one bird in the largest forest you have ever yet set foot in. No problem. How hard can it be? Okay. Phew. All right, yeah, that black fly is not your bird friend. He's evidently quite sentimental about his bird friend who nested with him this year. We're sure it's this year? Not like 5,000 years ago? He has not seen the little bird for some days, and he has grown worried, for the bird was working hard at building a nest. All right, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. The Ent creaks nervously, but says nothing more. The Ent is missing his little bird friend, and wondering whether it could have disappeared. Not whether, whither. All right, bird watching adventure. An incredible hill. All right, I gotta go look for birds from the top of the hill, but I should stop because it's time. Yes, this bird of yours must be a long liver, friend. Agreed. Prince Rillian, right? Okay. Sorry, trying to remember who actually delivered that line about being a long liver. Yes, the lion. Okay. Yeah, Ethelod, sorry. Yes, I was going to talk about that. So, yes, I'm still planning to do a Wiggins marathon. No, it's not going to be able to happen this weekend. I have other things that I have to do this weekend. I have home responsibilities I have to take care of. So I won't be able to do the marathon this weekend, but I still hope to do it soon. Perhaps next weekend. I'm not yet 100% sure, but I'll try to update you next weekend. And if, of course, I'll also be when I am able to commit to the time, I will certainly promote it on my social media outlets as well. So anyway, okay, 7 quests left until I move on to the Sutcrofts. Okay, there we go. Gryfflet will certainly be done in the Eves of Fangorn. I thought, so when do I get to go deeper into here? Do I come up from the south? I think it must be, right? So from here I go down south to the Sutcrofts is the next bit from here. Anyway, okay. Anyway, so yeah, so Ethelot, I do promise I will spread the word about that as soon as I can, once I can confirm the schedule. I know it might seem kind of counterintuitive, but this time of being homebound and isolated, in which a lot of people very understandably have a bunch of extra time on their hands and are going a little stir crazy. My personal experience with this time is almost entirely the opposite, partly because, of course, Signum University and what we do, meaning online education. It's a very busy time for online education. And so I'm flat out doing bunches and bunches of things, and also occupied with some home stuff. So I'm actually having a hard time squeezing stuff in right now. So I want to do it, and I'm planning to do it, but I can't make it happen this weekend. So, but as soon as I can, I promise I'll let you guys know. I definitely want to do the Wigan to the Black Gate marathon soon. And of course, I look forward to being back next week with Gryfflet and completing the Eves of Fangorn and perhaps heading down to the Sutcrofts and seeing what we see down there. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. Druid's Fire's up next, and I look forward to seeing you guys back again next week. Please do consider joining me for Mythgard Academy or Exploring the Lord of the Rings, and those are on our Signum Twitch channel, twitch.tv/SignumU. If you go there and click there to follow the channel, you'll receive notifications of when we go live for not only my shows, but of course other programming that we do there on that channel. So anyway, thanks very much, everybody, and I will see you guys next week. Bye now. Thanks for joining in on my rambles around Standing Stone's brilliant digital adaptation of Tolkien's world. If you enjoy these adventures, please consider supporting this and other entertaining educational programming by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.